The first sound isn't laughter. It's the hollow echo of a tray hitting the floor. Then the noise floods in hundreds of voices bouncing off cafeteria walls, the sound of sneakers on tile, the metallic clang of forks against trays. In the center of that chaos stands a girl no one really knows. She doesn't move at first. Her hoodie drips soda, her food splattered across the floor like an abstract painting. All around her phone's rise lenses, pointed red dots blinking. The crowd smells blood. A boy in a varsity jacket smirks from 2 tables away. He flicks his wrist again, casual, cruel, and the room erupts with laughter that sounds too loud, too sharp to be human. But she doesn't laugh. She doesn't cry. She just straightens her back. For a moment, time slows. The camera catches her eyes, dark, calm, deliberate. She wipes her face with a napkin, one slow movement at a time, like someone cleaning away the last trace of fear. The laughter begins to fade, replaced by a ripple of confusion. The boy tries again. "What's the matter, cat, got your pride?" He sneers. She looks up, voice steady. "Pick it up." Silence hits harder than any slap. Every phone lens trembles. Every smirk falters. The bully bends down, forced to grab the tray he just knocked over. His act of power collapses in front of everyone, and no one knows why. The air changes. Something unseen has shifted. Someone whispers, "Did she just make him do that?" Another laughs, nervously unsure whether to record or to run. In the stillness that follows, the camera pans back to her face. Those eyes, steady, unreadable, lock onto the viewer, not the crowd. As if she's asking you directly, "What would you have done?" A voiceover cuts in, quiet but sharp enough to draw breath. They thought humiliating the quiet girl would be easy. Beat. Wrong hallway. Beat. Wrong day. Beat. Wrong target. The image freezes. The laughter distorts, echoing backward until it dissolves into static. Then one last flash. The reflection of her calm face in a phone screen, and beneath it the caption posted to the school group, "New girl learns her place." A bell rings. The doors of Bayridge High's lunchroom burst open like floodgates. Hundreds of teenagers surge in, voices clashing, trays clattering, the air thick with the smell of pizza, bleach, and the Monday blues. It's Cleveland in February. Coats still hang half open. Shoes squeak against wet floors. Every table is territory. At the far corner, under a concrete beam painted over too many times, Nyla Brooks sits alone. A new face. Slim, quiet hoodie zipped to the throat, her earbuds still in, even though no music plays. She chose that spot on purpose, half-shadowed, easy to miss. She eats slow, like someone used to silence. But at Bayridge, silence is an invitation. Camden Price spots her before she even notices him. Captain of the football team. Senior. Local celebrity in sneakers. His laughter carries like a challenge, rich, careless, practiced. He walks surrounded by gravity, people orbit him. Sloan Rivers, the girl everyone either envies or obeys, scrolls her phone with a shark's patience. Behind them trail Jace and Cade, 2 broad-shouldered backups who follow trouble the way moths follow light. Camden's gaze flicks toward the corner table. A new girl. Alone. Small. Perfect. He flashes that same half-grin, the one that never reaches his eyes. "Watch this," he mutters. He cuts through the maze of tables, tray balanced in one hand, pretending to talk to Jace. The moment he nears Nyla, his shoulder brushes hers just enough to make it look accidental. The tray tips. The cup flies. A splash of soda bursts midair, amber liquid exploding across her hoodie and hair. The sound lands first, a sharp gasp, then laughter, the kind that isn't joy but applause for cruelty. Phones rise. Lenses blink. The crowd smells blood again. Sloane's lips curve into a slow smile as she lifts her camera higher. "Get this," she murmurs. Queen's content. The laughter grows teeth. "Yo, Price," someone shouts. "You baptized the new girl." Even the ones who don't laugh can't look away. Nyla doesn't move. She blinks once, twice, soda dripping from her chin to her tray. No tears, no gasp, just stillness. Then she takes a napkin. She starts from her forehead, wipes once, methodical. Then her cheek. Then the collar. Every motion quiet, precise. Like she's following a ritual no one else understands. The cafeteria's noise wavers. What was supposed to be comedy starts to feel wrong. Camden stands above her expecting protest, maybe a curse, but she just looks up, eyes calm, almost pitying. The corner of her mouth moves. Pick it up. Her voice isn't loud, but it slices clean through the laughter. For a heartbeat, nobody breathes. Camden frowns, caught between confusion and disbelief. Then he chuckles loud enough for everyone to hear. You talking to me? Nyla doesn't blink. You made the mess. Her tone stays even. No threat, no tremor. Just a fact spoken into the air. Sloane snickers. Ah, she's got attitude now. Camden shrugs, ready to twist the scene back into a joke. Sure thing, sweetheart. Anything else you want me to clean while I'm down there? That's when a voice cuts through the cafeteria like a gavel. Price. Every head turns. At the far end of the serving line, Miss Doyle, the cafeteria manager, stands with one hand on her hip and the other gripping a ladle like a weapon. Her voice is sandpaper and authority. Pick it up now. The laugh dies. Camden hesitates, jaw tightening. But Miss Doyle doesn't blink. He bends down, grabs the tray, sets it back on the table. A small sound, the clink of plastic against metal, echoes louder than the chaos before it. A micro loss of face. The kind no one forgets. Jace tries to recover the tension with a fake laugh, but it rings hollow. Camden forces a grin, shakes his head. My bad, Miss Doyle. Floor's slippery. He turns back toward Nyla, expecting some kind of relief, maybe gratitude. She's already wiping the last streak of soda from the table, motion, steady face unreadable. When she finishes, she picks up the cup, tosses it in the trash, and sits back down. She doesn't look at him again, doesn't look at anyone. The silence stretches, then folds. Laughter tries to rise again, but fails, halfway fading into whispers. Theo Grant, Camden's teammate, watches from 2 tables away. He's used to fights. He's used to the swagger, the show. But this unnerves him. When Nyla's hand moves to tuck her hoodie sleeve, Theo notices something. Across her knuckles, faint calluses, the kind that don't come from pens or phones. Old, worn, layered over time. The mark of someone who's hit things. A lot. Theo's eyebrows lift just a fraction. Then he glances away. Camden straightens his jacket, pretending the moment never happened. Come on, we're out, he mutters to Jace and Cade. Sloane lowers her phone, expression unreadable. She scrolls through the clip she's just recorded, the splash, the laughter, the quiet girl not reacting. She slows the footage. Zooms in on Nyla's face. No tears. No fear. Just that steady stare. Something about it bothers her. She opens her social app, types a caption in quick, sharp taps. Welcome to Bayridge. Knees or consequences. Her thumb hovers for a beat before pressing post. Within seconds, the notification ripple begins. The video starts spreading across the campus network, laughing emojis, fire reacts, and a thread of comments that don't feel like jokes anymore. At her table, Nyla finishes her lunch. Each bite is quiet, measured, almost defiant. Around her, the cafeteria's noise slowly returns, but it's changed tone. People are talking, but softer. Watching, but pretending not to. Theo catches Camden's eye as they leave. You went too far, man, he mutters. Camden scoffs. Please, she's fine. Yeah, Theo says quietly, eyes still on the corner table. That's what scares me. Camden laughs it off, pushing open the double doors, but there's a flicker in his jaw. Pulse of irritation he can't shake. Back in the corner, Nyla exhales once, slow. Her hand presses briefly to her chest, not in fear but control. She counts her breath, 1, 2, 3. Her pulse steadies. Across the room, Miss Doyle, while Nyla gathers her tray, wipes the last drop from the table and stands. When she walks toward the trash bins, phones follow again, but this time no, the soda stain down. The sound of her outside lockers slam, bells echo, doors click open. The school shifts into its next, but in the noise, something invisible has a. By the time the lunch bell ends, the post has gone campus-wide. The caption, knees or consequences. The comments divided. Half mo, half warning. And somewhere between the pixels, a question begins to crawl through every whisper. Who x Nyla doesn't scroll. She doesn't need to. She feels it in the way eyes follow her. The day has just started, and already Bayridge High is learning a new language. One where silence isn't weakness and calm is the most. Dang. The bell screams across Bayridge High, dragging the school into another round of noise. Lockers slam open, sneakers squeak, gossip leaks through the halls like smoke through vents. By now, everyone has seen it, the video. Knees or consequences. The caption glows on screens from math class to gym. Some laugh. Some whisper. Everyone scrolls. Nyla walks through it all. Head high. Hood up. Eyes forward. She doesn't need to check the post to know what it says. The air around her carries the weight of it, the way silence follows her like a new scent. As she passes through the E-hall corridor, the noise fades. The lights here are old, buzzing, one flicker away from dying. The janitor calls it the blind spot. No security cameras cover this stretch. Everyone knows it. So does Sloane Rivers. Sloane is already waiting, her back against a row of lockers, her phone in hand, recording light blinking red. Jace stands beside her, his knuckles popping in rhythm. Cade leans nearby, arms folded. Behind them, a few curious students linger, half nervous, half hungry for spectacle. When Nyla turns the corner, her footsteps echo louder than they should. Sloane smiles, a slow, deliberate curve that doesn't reach her eyes. Well, look who decided to walk right into it. Nyla stops 5 feet away, adjusts the strap of her backpack. I'm just going to class. Sloane's laughter bounces off the metal walls. No, sweetheart. You're going to learn something first. Around here, new girls kneel when they make a mess they can't clean. The students behind her murmur. The phrase travels fast, new girls kneel. It sounds rehearsed, like a rule she's repeated before. Nyla's voice is quiet, but it carries. I don't kneel for lies. The corridor goes still. Even the flickering lights seem to pause. Sloane's smirk twitches. What did you say? I said I don't kneel. And I don't apologize for what I didn't do. Jace laughs under his breath, stepping forward, the sound heavy against the tile. She's got a mouth. Let's see if she can use it after a shove. He reaches for her hoodie fast, but Nyla doesn't flinch. At the last second, she shifts half a step, shoulder turning just enough that his hand closes on air. His own momentum drags him forward. He stumbles, hits the locker with a thud. The watchers gasp. Jace straightens, red-faced, jaw tight. Lucky move. He tries again, this time faster, anger replacing aim. His fingers graze her sleeve, but Nyla pivots. One breath, one smooth turn. Her movement is liquid, deliberate, as if she's been rehearsing this moment forever. He loses balance again, off center, his arm swinging through nothing but air. The sound that follows isn't laughter, it's silence. Not disbelief, calculation. Theo Grant, who's just stepped into the far end of the hall, freezes. He'd been heading to class, earbuds in, but the tension in the air pulls him like gravity. He watches the scene, sees Jace's fists, Nyla's stillness, the way her stance lowers ever so slightly before each deflection. Not scared. Not even defensive. Reading. Theo's throat tightens. He's seen that kind of balance before on training videos. His uncle showed him clips of fighters who could redirect force without striking once. He watches her feet move, her weight shift, every step measured, every breath controlled. Jace, panting now, glances back at Sloane. She's toying with me. Sloane's face darkens. What are you doing? She snaps. End it. Jace lunges a third time. Nyla exhales slowly, then steps aside. This time she doesn't even touch him. She simply lets him pass his shoulder, brushing the locker again. He lands awkwardly, hand scraping metal. The corridor fills with the metallic ring of his fall. For a second, no one speaks. Only the hum of the broken lights remains steady and cruel. Sloane's eyes narrow. You think this makes you brave? Nyla looks at her, calm but unyielding. This isn't bravery. It's balance. That line hangs in the air, thin and dangerous. Theo takes a slow step closer. He doesn't know why. Part of him wants to stop it, part of him wants to understand it. Sloane takes a step forward too, heels clicking sharply against tile. Her phone is still recording. You really think you can walk around here like you're untouchable? You embarrassed Camden in front of everyone. You embarrassed me. Nyla tilts her head slightly. Did I? Or did you do that yourselves? The small crowd murmurs again. The energy shifts. People aren't laughing now. They're listening. Sloane feels it, the control slipping. She hates the way Nyla's silence feels heavier than her own threats. So she smiles, that cold, practiced smile, and raises her voice. You know what, maybe we should make this official. Jace rubs his shoulder, glaring. Official how? Sloane turns the phone's camera on herself, making sure everyone can hear. Outdoor court. After last bell. Let's see if the new girl can keep her balance when everyone's watching. The students murmur louder now, caught between excitement and fear. A couple pull out their phones, immediately typing into group chats. The words spread like smoke. Theo's eyes widen. Sloan, don't. She ignores him. You wanted to talk big, Nyla. Show it. Or admit you're just hiding behind luck. Nyla stares at her for a long moment. Her expression doesn't change, but her eyes, dark and steady, seem to weigh the room, the crowd, the lights, every breath. Finally, she says, quiet but clear. I already told you. I don't kneel for lies. The words hit like glass breaking in slow motion. Theo feels his pulse jump. Sloane's smile freezes. The crowd exhales a soft chorus of disbelief. And then someone laughs, nervous, then another. The sound spreads not as mockery but anticipation. You heard her. A voice calls from the back. Court after school. The hallway erupts. Phones rise again, notifications pinging in chorus. In less than 60 seconds, a dozen messages leave the corridor. Fight at the court 330. New girl versus Rivers. Bayridge battle. Nyla doesn't move. She just exhales once, then turns toward the end of the hallway. Theo watches her go, the hum of lights flickering across her back. Sloane lowers her phone, smirk returning, but thinner this time. She'll regret that line. Theo glances at her, voice low. Maybe you will. She raises an eyebrow. Excuse me. He shakes his head. You don't even see it, do you? She's not scared of you. And that's what's got you shaking. He walks off before Sloane can reply. The crowd thins. The last stragglers whisper their words, bouncing through the corridor until they sound like an echo. After school, court, fight. The lights above buzz again, one flicker from going dark. By the time the bell rings for the next period, Bayridge High is already electric with rumor. Students are choosing sides, betting outcomes, spreading the story across apps. The quiet girl who didn't kneel has become the headline. And outside, on the cracked asphalt of the basketball court, the wind begins to rise, like the school itself is holding its breath, waiting for the next move. The bell that ends the last class doesn't sound like freedom that day. It sounds like a drum roll before judgment. By 3:30, the whole of Bayridge High has gathered around the outdoor basketball court, a rectangle of cracked asphalt bordered by chain-link fences and rusted hoops that creak in the wind. Phones are already raised, lenses glinting under the pale Cleveland Sunday. The chant spreads before anyone even steps onto the court. Bayridge battle. Bayridge battle. Nyla arrives last. Her hoodie is still damp from morning rain, but her expression is unreadable. She walks through the circle that parts for her, not out of respect but curiosity. The calmness she carries feels misplaced here, like silence walking into thunder. Across from her stands Camden Price, still in his varsity jacket, a grin stretched too wide to be real. He basks in the noise like a performer before the curtain rises. Next to him, Sloane Rivers holds her phone, steady eyes sharp, capturing every frame. Jace and Cade stand at the edges, hyping him up, slapping shoulders, shouting, "Let's go, Captain." Even teachers haven't come out. No one wants to get in the middle of a crowd that smells of adrenaline and spectacle. Camden steps forward, voice booming through the circle. "All right, everybody knows why we're here." He paces slowly, dragging the moment out like a showman. The new girl thinks she can talk big, thinks she can walk through this school like she's better than us. He turns toward Nyla. "So I'm giving her a chance." The crowd cheers, phones tilt closer. "Here's the deal," Camden says, pointing to his shoulder. "All you gotta do, Brooks, is touch this. Just one touch in front of everyone. You do that, you win. You walk out clean. Fail and you crawl." A ripple of noise rolls through the crowd. Someone whispers, "That's easy." Another mutters, "Not if he means it." Nyla doesn't answer. She studies him quietly, her gaze moving from his feet to his jawline, measuring not the man but the distance between them, the wind direction, the weight of noise. Camden mistakes her silence for fear. He grins wider. "What's wrong?" Already shaking. She shakes her head once. "I don't play games where the rules are lies." That line lands heavier than any curse. For a second, even Sloane's hand wavers on her phone. Camden chuckles, steps closer, spreading his arms as if offering her the chance. "Come on then. Touch it." The wind cuts across the court, cold and metallic. The rusted nets sway behind them. The crowd's chants soften into a hush. Nyla exhales slowly. 1 breath. 2. She adjusts her stance 1 foot forward, 1 back, barely noticeable, but Theo Grant, standing at the edge of the crowd, sees it. He recognizes that kind of preparation. It's not aggression. It's control. Camden lunges first, sudden and showy, hoping to make her flinch. She doesn't. Instead, she pivots half-step to the right. Her hand lifts, not touching him, just hanging in the air near his shoulder, palm open, invisible wall between them. Camden's momentum meets that emptiness like a punch into fog. His balance falters. He tries to correct it, but the shift in his own weight betrays him. His shoes slide on the cracked concrete, and in front of 200 students he stumbles. A gasp cuts through the crowd. Then silence. The sound of a rusted hoop creaking in the wind fills the space between heartbeats. Camden steadies himself, face burning red. He looks around, pretending it was nothing, that he slipped. Court's uneven, he mutters, trying to laugh. But no one laughs back. Because everyone saw something, even if they can't explain it. How she didn't move fast, didn't fight, didn't strike, just redirected. Theo's eyes widen. That wasn't luck. That was technique. Sloane lowers her phone, reviewing the footage. All she's caught is Camden stumbling forward, Nyla standing calm. No strike, no hit, nothing that explains it. It looks like magic or mockery. Camden straightens, angry now. You think that was funny? Nyla's eyes meet his. No. It was gravity. Laughter ripples soft, uncertain, not mocking her but him. And that's what finally cracks Camden's pride. He charges again, faster this time. But Nyla moves before he reaches her, 1 step aside, hand cutting through air with surgical precision. Camden overshoots his shoulder, brushing nothing but the wind, and he catches himself against the fence. Someone in the crowd whistles low. Another murmurs, "Yo, she just..." But no one finishes the sentence. No one knows the word for what they've just seen. Camden's chest heaves. The wind carries his breath away before he can find words. He looks like he wants to strike, but something in her stillness stops him, like a mirror he doesn't want to face. Nyla lowers her hand, the ghost of motion still vibrating in the air. "I told you," she says softly. "I don't kneel. Not for lies. Not for noise." The crowd parts as she walks past him, steps slow, deliberate, echoing against the asphalt. No one cheers. No one boos. Just the faint hum of phones being lifted, capturing her as she leaves the circle untouched. Sloane stares at her phone, replaying the clip. Only 4 seconds show anything at all. Camden stumbling, Nyla standing still. No context, no clarity, just confusion wrapped in rumor. By the time Nyla disappears into the building, that clip is already spreading. Someone adds a caption, "He tripped." Or did she do something? Within 10 minutes, it's reposted 100 times. By the next class, everyone has an opinion. She pushed him. No, she didn't even touch him. Dude, it's edited. It's real. Look at the angle. The story fractures into versions, each one sharper, crueler, louder. The cafeteria replayed it like a crime scene. The locker room turned it into legend. Camden walks away from the court jacket, half-zipped, pride in tatters. Theo catches up to him. "What happened out there?" he asks quietly. Camden doesn't answer. He just mutters, "She's not normal." Sloane trails behind, expression unreadable, thumbs flying over her phone. Within minutes, her private messages flare to life. She types quickly, breath shallow. Sloane to Camden, "Jim, tonight. We finish this. No crowd." The screen lights up in his hand. Camden stares at the message for a long time before typing back 2 words. "I'm in." By the time the sun slipped behind the bleachers, the Bayridge High gym had turned into something else entirely. No teachers, no crowd, just echoes. The faint hum of the old fluorescent lights filled the air, a nervous electric sound that never quite held steady. They flickered above the faded half-court logo, washing everything in a pale, uneven glow. The double doors creaked open. Camden Price stepped in first, still wearing his varsity jacket, face set and jaw locked. His shoes squeaked against the polished wood as he walked to center court, dragging his breath like a challenge. Behind him, Jace followed, shoulders tight, glancing toward the bleachers as if expecting ghosts. And Sloane Rivers, always the documentarian, kept her phone raised, red light blinking. "This time," Camden said, voice low, No crowd. No witnesses. Just truth. Nyla Brooks was already there. Standing under the flickering scoreboard backpack on the floor, arms loose at her sides. Her expression gave nothing away. "You think truth needs an audience?" she asked quietly. Camden smiled without warmth. "Only proof does." Sloane moved closer, angling for a better shot. The glow from her phone lit her face in cold blue. Jace cracked his knuckles. "Let's finish this quick." Theo Grant lingered just outside the gym doors, unseen, one hand on the frame. He wasn't supposed to be here, but something in his gut told him not to leave. Inside, the air grew heavy, static charged. Camden took his stance. "Same deal," he said, stretching his neck. "You touch me, you win. But this time, no lucky slips." Nyla looked down at her hands, flexed her fingers once, and stepped into the light. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "I don't need to win anything. Just stay standing." Camden's smirk tightened. "Then stand." He lunged. The gym erupted in sound shoes, skidding breath cutting through air. Camden's arm shot forward, a blur of muscle and ego. Nyla didn't back away. She pivoted, hips turning, redirecting his weight past her. Her hand caught his shoulder, not striking but guiding, then twisted downward. The motion was clean, deliberate, a shoulder lock so fast it looked like gravity itself had grabbed him. Camden hit one knee with a sharp exhale, but she released before pain could settle. He stumbled back, glaring. Jace saw the opening and charged from the side. Nyla stepped back, her right foot sliding into alignment. Her knee rose, catching his forward motion, a controlled knee check, not hard enough to injure, just enough to steal his air. Jace gasped, doubled over, wind knocked clean out of him. The fluorescent lights above buzzed louder, then pop, darkness. The world vanished in a blink. Someone screamed. Shoes scuffed the floor. A phone clattered against the wood. In that 10-second void, chaos bloomed. A grunt, a breath, a crash against the bleachers. Someone yelled, "Turn them back on." No one could see who was moving, who was falling, who was afraid. And then, light. Buzzing, stuttering light flooded back in. The scene froze like a photo, Camden Price on his knees, palms pressed to the floor, jacket half torn, eyes wide. Jace leaning against the bleachers, gasping. Sloane still holding her phone, face pale, camera trembling. And Nyla standing dead center, breathing evenly, arms at her sides. No one spoke. The only sound was the flicker of the old lights, the hum of their resurrection. Camden lifted his head, anger flashing behind confusion. "You think that makes you—" He coughed, voice breaking. "You think this proves anything?" Nyla didn't answer. She just looked at him. Not down, not smug, just steady. Sloane broke the silence. "Stop," she snapped, her voice rising half from fear, half from frustration. "Everyone just stop." Her screen was still recording. She pulled it close, scrolling fast. Black. 10 full seconds of darkness. Nothing but muffled breathing and static. She stared at it, disbelief curdling in her chest. "What? How?" Jace straightened, eyes darting toward the ceiling. "Power surge," he muttered. "Or something." Camden's voice cracked with a forced laugh. "Lucky again, huh?" He pushed himself up, brushing off his sleeves, trying to stand taller than his humiliation. The act didn't work. Theo, still half hidden near the door, took a step inside. He scanned the gym, the lights, the bleachers, the far corner. That's when he saw it. Up near the ceiling above the equipment loft, a tiny red light was blinking. Old, faint, but alive. A camera. One of the old surveillance units the school used before the digital upgrades. Dust-covered, forgotten, but still recording. Theo froze. His stomach turned cold. No one else seemed to notice. Camden was too busy trying to salvage his pride. Sloane scrolling through her black footage like she could will images into existence. Theo's gaze stayed fixed on that blinking light. A quiet witness. Proof hiding in plain sight. He took a step back, breath caught halfway. If it captured what really happened, it could change everything. But if anyone else found it first, especially Sloane, truth would vanish before morning. Camden turned toward Nyla again. "You think this is over? You think anyone's gonna believe your little act when all the cameras went dark?" Sloane looked up from her phone, smirk forming again now that the shock had passed. "He's right," she said. "No one saw you holding back. They just saw you standing over him." Nyla said nothing. Only her breathing betrayed her calm, steady deep, like she was anchoring herself to the floor. Sloane raised her phone again, this time hitting upload. She trimmed the clip, quickly cutting before the blackout ending on Camden's fall. Nyla's shadow standing tall under the light. A few taps, a caption, and it was done. She snapped. Look who's really violent. The post hit the network like wildfire. By the time Theo slipped out of the gym, the clip had already been reshared twice. He could hear notifications pinging in the hall. Nyla stayed behind, eyes lifted toward the ceiling. The old camera blinked once more before the lights buzzed again. For a second, the gym felt heavier, smaller, like the walls were holding a secret no one wanted to touch. Sloane lowered her phone, satisfied. "Congratulations," she muttered. "You just went from mystery girl to monster." She turned toward Camden, who was still rubbing his shoulder. "Let's make sure everyone sees it that way." As the doors slammed behind them, Theo leaned against the cold locker outside, heart racing. He looked down at his watch, its faint glow reflecting off the hallway tiles. He'd caught just enough audio during the blackout, enough to know the story being told online was a lie. He looked back at the gym, the single red light still pulsing faintly through the dusty window above the loft. The blackout wasn't the dark part, he whispered to himself. This is. The hum of the fluorescence continued, tired and constant, as if trying to erase what they'd just seen. But above them, the old camera kept blinking, recording, remembering. And by the time the lights finally steadied, the truth was already out of Nyla's hands, and in someone else's. By morning, Bayridge High didn't feel like a school anymore. It felt like a courtroom disguised with lockers. The corridors were too quiet. Even the morning announcements crackled weakly through the speakers, as if afraid to disturb what everyone was already whispering about. By 8:00 a.m., the air inside Principal Whitaker's conference room was heavier than most detention halls. The blinds were half-closed, cutting strips of sunlight across the long wooden table. Coffee cups sat untouched, steam thinning like nervous breath. On one side sat Camden Price, Bayridge's golden boy, now visibly tarnished, his varsity jacket traded for a pressed button-down that couldn't hide the tension in his shoulders. Beside him, the district lawyer, a man with gray temples and a briefcase that clicked open with sterile precision, shuffled papers without looking up. Next to Camden, Sloane Rivers was the picture of composure gone, theatrical, perfectly curled hair, deliberately pale face, eyes red but dry. Every move was calibrated for sympathy. Across the table, Jace slumped, head down, hands clasped between his knees, saying nothing. On the opposite side sat Nyla Brooks. No makeup, no lawyer, no expression, just a folded piece of notebook paper in front of her, edges torn unevenly. Her hoodie sleeves covered her wrists, her eyes steady on the surface of the table. Principal Whitaker sat at the head, her posture immaculate, but her voice fraying at the edges. "We're here," she began to review the incident in the gymnasium last night. "District Council will represent the Hale family's complaint." Camden's lawyer cleared his throat. "The footage circulating online shows my client being assaulted. There's physical injury, shoulder strain, possible bruising, and emotional distress." "Alleged injury," Whitaker corrected quietly. Sloane jumped in, voice trembling on cue. "It was horrifying. She just snapped. We thought she was going to." Her words broke into practiced tears. Whitaker raised a hand. "Miss Rivers, this isn't theater. Please keep to facts." Sloane bit her lip, nodding, but her eyes flickered sideways to Camden, his silent permission still her signal. Across from them, Nyla finally spoke. "I defended myself." 3 words. No more. But the simplicity of it landed like a gavel strike. The lawyer looked unimpressed. "Self-defense typically requires proportionality, Miss Brooks. The footage we've reviewed suggests aggression." Nyla didn't blink. "Then you haven't seen the right footage." A silence rippled through the room. Whitaker frowned. "There is only one circulating clip." "Not anymore." The voice didn't come from Nyla. It came from Theo Grant, who had just stepped in through the side door. His hoodie was half-zipped, his hair uncombed, his face pale but resolute. In his hand was something small and black. A USB drive. He didn't speak further. He simply placed it on the table, the soft click echoing through the room like a quiet door slam. The lawyer narrowed his eyes. "And that is?" Theo's voice stayed even. "The complete footage from the gym camera, the old one in the loft." I pulled it from the backup server this morning. Whitaker hesitated, glancing toward the district representative. Is it verified? Theo shrugged faintly. You'll know in about 30 seconds. He slid the USB forward. Whitaker nodded at her secretary. Plug it in. The projector hummed to life. A thin blue light filled the wall, shaky at first, then clear. The footage played. No edits. No blackout gaps. It began with Camden's lunge, his full weight driving forward, and Nyla's pivot quick and fluid. Her hand caught his shoulder, turned him downward, released immediately. No excessive force. No intent to harm. Then Jace charging in. Nyla's knee lifted in controlled redirection. The sound of impact was mild, an exhale, not a hit. Then darkness. 10 seconds of it. The screen showed only static and muffled sound. But the camera kept recording. When the lights flicked back on, Camden was already on his knees, Nyla standing still, the gym echoing with shock. Every detail was there, no missing frames, no digital scars. It was balanced, precise, undeniable. When the clip ended, the silence in the room was absolute. Even the fluorescent hum from the ceiling seemed to hush. Whitaker spoke first, voice hushed. This is the unaltered recording. Theo nodded. Yes, Mom. Time-stamped continuous feed, pulled straight from the system. The district lawyer leaned forward, voice cracking slightly despite his effort to sound composed. I need to review the metadata before we accept authenticity. Whitaker nodded. Of course. We'll have IT confirm. Until then, this hearing is adjourned pending verification. Sloane opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her phone sat silent on the table. Its once powerful lens now an exposed liar. Camden's jaw flexed. He stared at the frozen frame of himself on his knees, illuminated by the projector's blue light. The reflection of that image shimmered across his face, a cruel mirror he couldn't turn away from. Nyla didn't move, didn't gloat. She just exhaled slowly, like someone surfacing from deep water for the first time in days. Theo looked down, unsure whether to stay or leave. But Whitaker turned to him. Mr. Grant, thank you for your integrity. We'll handle it from here. He nodded once and left quietly, closing the door behind him. Inside, the silence stretched. Sloane's hand twitched, nails scraping the table edge. She turned slightly toward Camden, voice low and sharp, now stripped of her victim tone. You're just going to let that slide? Camden didn't answer. His eyes were locked on Nyla, something burning there, not anger exactly, but humiliation's bitter cousin. Whitaker began gathering the files. We'll reconvene after technical verification. Until then, no disciplinary action will be taken. The words should have been a relief. They felt like oxygen entering a suffocating room. But for Camden, they sounded like a verdict he hadn't expected to lose. He stood abruptly, chair scraping hard against the tile. Are we done? Whitaker looked up. For now. He left without another word, Sloane close behind her heels, tapping sharp on the floor. Outside, the morning air hit like cold water. The parking lot was half-empty, sunlight bouncing off windshields. Camden stopped by his car, gripping the door handle too tightly. Sloane caught up, voice softening into something deceptively tender. Hey. He didn't answer. His knuckles were white. Cam, she said, drawing closer. You saw that USB, right? You saw how fast he dropped it. Who else could have known about that old camera? Camden turned, frowning. What are you talking about? Sloane tilted her head, eyes glittering under the morning Sunday. Theo. He's the only one who hangs around the gym after hours, always helping with the AV stuff, always listening. Camden blinked, still too dazed to catch the trap in her tone. He's your teammate. Sloane continued, voice turning velvet poison. And he just blindsided you. Think about it. That footage didn't appear by magic. Camden's jaw clenched. Theo wouldn't what Sloane cut in, wouldn't betray you or wouldn't dare, because it sure looked like he did both. The breeze lifted her hair. She smiled faintly, watching the idea take root behind his eyes. Camden exhaled, hard, eyes unfocused. The tension that had been humiliation now simmered into something darker. He opened the car door slowly, the metal creaking. Sloane leaned closer, whispering, If you want your name back, don't look at her. Look at him. Then she stepped back, heels clicking on the asphalt, and left him standing there in the glare of the morning sun, fists tightening on the steering wheel. Behind her, the conference room blinds, swayed in the breeze, and inside Principal Whitaker watched the last frame of the footage fade to black. For a fleeting second, she thought the room was empty. But in that silence, truth still hovered. A small black USB still sitting on the table like a quiet weapon waiting to detonate again. The parking lot behind Bayridge High was nearly empty by dusk. The day's last light bruised the horizon, turning the windows of the school gold before they sank into gray. Cold air hung low, sharp enough to make breath visible. The staff lot was supposed to be locked after hours, but rules meant nothing to the people waiting there. Camden Price stood beside his car, staring down at the asphalt like it might answer something for him. His varsity jacket had lost its shine, creased at the elbows, sleeves pushed up as if he'd been pacing for hours. The bruises on his shoulder had started to fade, but the one on his pride hadn't. Sloane Rivers leaned against the hood, blowing into her hands for warmth. Her phone buzzed every few seconds with new notifications, but she ignored them. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft, almost sympathetic, the kind of softness that hid blades inside it. "She played you," she said. "Both of them did." Camden didn't move. "Who?" Sloane shrugged, feigning surprise. "You really have to ask." She tilted her head, eyes catching the dim orange glow of the parking lights. "That USB didn't appear out of nowhere, Cam. Somebody planted it. Somebody who knew about the old gym camera. And guess who spends half his life in there fixing AV equipment?" Camden's jaw tensed. "Theo. There it is." Sloane's voice was a whisper, satisfied. "Your boy Wonder. The quiet one who keeps pretending he's just helping out. He's been sitting on that footage for days waiting to humiliate you." Camden exhaled a shaky breath that turned white in the cold. He didn't look at her. He wouldn't. Sloane smiled. "You said that about Nyla too." The words hung between them like smoke. Jace lingered a few feet away, hands stuffed in his pockets. He didn't want to be here. The silence felt like walking through fog, every word muffled, every glance heavy. Finally, Camden turned toward him, eyes sharp. "Find him." Jace blinked. "Camden. Find him." Camden repeated, voice low but trembling with anger. "He's the reason we're in this mess. He betrayed the team, me, everything." "Handle it." "Handle it how?" Jace asked quietly, already knowing the answer. Camden didn't say the word. He didn't have to. Sloane smirked faintly, watching the order land. "You always said loyalty was what separated friends from followers. Guess we're about to find out who's which." Camden turned away, rubbing his temples. "Just make sure he learns what happens when people stab me in the back." Jace nodded reluctantly. He didn't like Theo, but he didn't hate him either. Still, Camden's voice wasn't something you disobeyed. Not yet. When Sloane and Camden finally left, the lot fell quiet again. The only sound was the wind brushing across the metal fence and Jace's shoes crunching on loose gravel as he stood alone, unsure who the villain really was anymore. Across town, Theo Grant sat at the edge of his bed, phone in hand. The glow from the screen washed his face pale. A message notification blinked. "We need to talk. Meet me at the old pool." He'd typed the words 5 minutes ago and still hadn't hit send. The black USB was gone, left behind in Whitaker's office, but it felt heavier now than when it was in his pocket. The truth had been shown, yes, but something about how it landed didn't sit right. Nyla hadn't looked at him afterward. Not once. He wanted to believe it was gratitude in her silence. But what if it was disappointment? Theo finally hit send. He stood, pulled on his jacket, and left without telling his mother where he was going. Outside, the cold bit into his lungs. Streetlights flickered overhead, the kind of yellow glow that made everything look older than it was. His mind kept replaying the look on Camden's face that morning, shock first, then disbelief, then something meaner. By the time Theo reached the pool complex, night had swallowed the parking lot. The metal gate creaked as he pushed it open. The pool itself sat dark water, black, and still under the faint moonlight. A few leaves floated near the drain like drowned paper. The building behind it, the locker room, was half lit, one buzzing fluorescent still alive. He slipped inside. Nyla was already there. She stood near the pool's edge, hands in her jacket pockets, hair pulled back tight. The same calm she wore in the gym was back, but now it felt heavier, more deliberate, like armor. "You shouldn't be here," she said without turning. "You answered my text," Theo replied. "That doesn't mean it was smart." He stepped closer, stopping a few feet from her. The smell of chlorine and dust filled the air sharp enough to sting. "They're going after you," he said quietly. "Sloan Camden, they think you planted that footage." Nyla's shoulders tensed. "Do they have proof?" "Not yet. But they're not looking for proof. They're looking for someone to punish." Her reflection rippled on the black water. "Then they'll find what they want." Theo swallowed. "Don't talk like that." She finally turned, eyes narrowing. "You don't understand what people like them do when they lose control." He hesitated. "Actually, I do." The silence between them stretched thin. Theo reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "I still have backups. Not just the gym footage, everything from that night. The sound, too. The part where Jace tried to grab you before the blackout. The part where Camden said he wanted it to look like your fault." Nyla's eyes flickered just once. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I think they're coming after me next." She stepped forward, her boots scraping against the concrete. "Then you should have stayed out of it." Theo shook his head. "I couldn't." "Why not?" He looked down at his shoes. "Because someone had to do something." The lights buzzed above them, one flickering out. The sound of dripping echoed across the room. Outside footsteps approached, the crunch of gravel, the creak of the gate. Nyla froze. "Did you tell anyone you were coming?" "No." Theo's pulse quickened. The footsteps grew louder. A voice called out, muffled by the walls but unmistakable. "Camden's." "Grant, I know you're here." Theo's breath hitched. He turned toward the door, but Nyla grabbed his sleeve. "Wait." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "What did you bring?" He blinked. "What?" "Your phone. The files." Theo nodded slowly. She stared at him, her face unreadable in the half-light. "Good," she said. "Bring what you have." The door creaked open, a slice of light spilling across the wet tiles. Camden's shadow stretched long across the floor, Jace's right behind it. "You really shouldn't have done that, man," Camden said, his voice cold now. "No team, no friendship, just accusation." Theo's grip tightened on his phone. The air smelled like metal and chlorine. Nyla stepped forward, placing herself slightly between them, not in defiance but calculation. The pool water reflected their shapes, a distorted collage of truth, fear, and fury. Camden smiled thinly. "What's this, Brooks? Saving your tech boy? You two make a good pair, both think evidence can wash off guilt." Nyla's voice was level. "Funny thing about evidence," she said. "It doesn't drown easily." The next few seconds stretched like wire. Jace's hand twitched, and Theo's thumb hovered over his phone screen, ready to hit record. The water rippled from a gust through the broken vent above, and in that reflection all four figures seemed to blur into one indistinguishable shadow. Outside, a police siren echoed faintly somewhere in the city, too far to help, too close to ignore. Nyla glanced sideways at Theo. "If it comes to it," she said under her breath, "drop the phone in the pool. Let it choose what truth survives." Theo stared at her, stunned. But before he could answer, Camden took a step closer, and the floor between them glimmered faintly under the cold light, a border neither of them had planned to cross. The water will swallow secrets or spit them back. The air inside the Bayridge pool was thick enough to taste. A faint fog clung above the black water, and the green edge lights gave everything a sickly underwater glow. Even the ceiling looked alive, pulsing in waves of reflected light. The door slammed shut behind Camden, echoing like a gunshot. The metallic rattle rolled down the tiled walls, and then the sound of shoes on wet floor, followed measured, deliberate, dangerous. Jace lingered near the entrance, jaw tight, arms crossed like someone pretending not to be afraid. Camden's shadow stretched first long and sharp before he appeared in full, his face drawn, his voice low and steady, though his pulse betrayed him. "Give me the files, Theo. Right now." Theo stood frozen near the pool's deep end, the dim green light outlining his trembling hands. The phone in his pocket suddenly felt like it weighed 100 pounds. He swallowed hard. "You don't need to do this." Camden took a step forward, sneakers squeaking against the damp tile. "Don't tell me what I need. You went behind my back, man. You made me a joke." Theo's voice cracked. "You made yourself one." The sound hit the air like a spark. Jace looked away. Sloan wasn't here to script this scene. No one was. There were no filters, no edits, just the raw, ugly truth bouncing off tiled walls. Camden's lips curled into a bitter half-smile. You really think you're the hero in this? Theo's breathing quickened. I didn't do it for me. Then who? Theo's eyes darted toward Nyla, who stood motionless near the diving board, her reflection fractured in the water's surface. She didn't move, didn't speak, her silence, the only thing steady in a room trembling with tension. Camden's voice dropped to a whisper, rough and dangerous. You did it for her. Theo didn't deny it. Camden laughed once, short, empty. Then he turned to Jace. Take it, Cam. I said take it. Jace hesitated, but his loyalty was muscle memory. He moved forward, slow but steady, trying to reason with his eyes what he couldn't say out loud. Theo backed up until his heels touched the edge of the pool. Behind him, the water was a flat black mirror. Don't, Theo said, voice trembling. Camden, you're making it worse. I'm fixing it. Camden snapped. Theo reached into his pocket, pulled out a small waterproof pouch, the faint glint of a USB visible inside. He held it up between his fingers. This is what you want, right? Proof. Blame. All of it. The light hit the pouch just enough to make it gleam. Camden's eyes narrowed. Hand it over. Theo looked past him at Jace's uncertainty, at Nyla's unreadable calm, and said almost to himself, You don't lose friends. You find out who was furniture. Camden frowned. What the hell does that mean? Theo took one half step back, the heel of his sneaker slipping on wet tile. The moment stretched. His balance faltered. Camden lunged forward to grab his arm, too fast, too hard, and both of them went sideways. A sharp splash broke the air like glass shattering. Then silence. The pool swallowed them whole. For a moment there was only soundless chaos, the muffled thrash of limbs, bubbles rising like ghosts. Theo's vision blurred. Cold water burned his lungs. He saw flashes of light green, distorted, dancing across the surface as if mocking him. Camden's grip found his jacket underwater, yanking hard. Theo's fingers spasmed, and the USB pouch slipped free, twirling in slow motion, a tiny bright object drifting upward like a dying star. Nyla moved before she could think. One breath, one leap. The water exploded again, swallowing her whole. She cut through it cleanly, arms tight to her sides. The current shifted around her body like a second skin. Underwater, everything was muted, the fight, the fear, even time. The green light from above filtered down like sunlight through a forest canopy, making the scene both unreal and sacred. Camden was still pulling at Theo, who struggled to break free. Panic was raw in both their eyes, not hatred anymore. Just the terrifying instinct of people who suddenly realize they can drown. Nyla reached them, grabbed Camden's wrist, not to hurt, but to redirect. She twisted, gently moving his weight away from Theo's throat. The motion was measured, the same calm that had baffled everyone in the cafeteria, and the gym now translated into liquid grace. Camden's body spun with the flow, disoriented. Nyla kicked upward, bringing Theo with her, one hand gripping the back of his jacket, the other pushing water aside. They broke the surface together. Theo gasped, coughing, water streaming from his hair. Camden surfaced seconds later, sputtering and cursing, his voice raw from swallowed chlorine. No one said anything for a moment. The room dripped, echoed. The sound of their breathing filled the void. The USB pouch floated near the center of the pool, caught in the reflection of the green light. Nyla swam to it slowly, her movements smooth and deliberate. When she reached it, she lifted it with one hand, water sliding off the plastic like melted glass. She looked at both boys. Neither could meet her gaze. Theo's voice came first, soft but certain. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Nyla said nothing. I thought if I showed the truth, it'd fix things. It doesn't fix people, she said quietly. It just shows them what they already were. Theo took a deep breath, the kind that steadies shaking hands. Then let me do one thing right. Camden barked out a hollow laugh. You think standing next to her makes you righteous? Theo didn't look at him. He looked at Nyla. I stand with you, he said simply. Something changed in the air, then small, invisible, but real. The tension cracked like the moment right before sunrise, when the world remembers to breathe again. Camden climbed out of the pool, dripping, furious, humiliated. He didn't shout this time. He just stood there, fists shaking, water pooling at his feet. Keep it, he spat. Both of you deserve each other. He walked toward the exit, shoes squeaking against tile. Jace lingered, torn between directions, then followed without a word. The door closed. The silence that followed was not peace, it was aftermath. Nyla climbed out, sat on the edge, feet still dangling in the water. Theo stayed where he was, arms resting on the side, head tilted back toward the ceiling. The green lights buzzed softly. Somewhere above, a vent fan hummed a low, constant sound that didn't belong to the silence. Nyla noticed it first. She looked up. There, behind the narrow slats of the vent, something flickered, a shadow, faint movement, the brief reflection of an eye catching the light before disappearing. Her pulse slowed to a crawl. Someone had been watching. Theo followed her gaze. "What is it?" She shook her head, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Nothing." But her eyes said otherwise. The air felt heavier now, as if the room itself knew too much. The water rippled once, then stilled again, holding the secret for as long as it could. And above them, the hum of the fan carried on, a quiet witness recording its own kind of truth. The hum of the vent fan still echoed in Nyla's head long after she left the pool. By dawn, the air outside had turned sharp and colorless, the kind of early morning chill that scraped lungs clean. The school was barely awake, empty corridors, vending machines flickering, and the faint echo of a janitor's cart somewhere down the hall. But in the main gym, lights were already on. Nyla stepped inside, tightening her ponytail. The wooden floor gleamed like a mirror, the freshly polished lines catching the first amber light through the windows. A banner still hung crooked from the rafters: District Martial Arts Exhibition, 24 hours. It wasn't just another school event anymore. Not after what had happened in that pool. Theo was already there, crouched near the edge of the stage mats, pretending to scroll his phone but actually scanning the setup. His hoodie was zipped to the chin, his eyes restless. "You didn't have to come this early," Nyla said, stretching her arms across her chest. Theo looked up. "Couldn't sleep." She gave a half smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, me neither." He hesitated, then glanced at the mats again. "You trust this setup?" "Trust is expensive," she said quietly, "and we're short on budget." Nyla walked toward the center of the floor. The mats were freshly laid and white interlocking foam tiles, but her foot caught slightly on one corner that wasn't flush. She frowned, crouched, and pressed down. It didn't give evenly. Theo noticed. Something wrong. Maybe just uneven. But she didn't sound sure. He got up and joined her, kneeling to lift the edge of the mat. Beneath it, the foam looked newer than the rest, too clean, like it had been replaced recently. His brow furrowed. "Wait," he said. "This piece wasn't here yesterday." Nyla's eyes flicked to the doorway. "Someone's been in here overnight." Theo ran his fingers along the seam where the foam met the wood. Something rough caught under his nails. A slit, thin, deliberate, running several inches long. "Jesus," he whispered. "That's a cut." Nyla's pulse spiked. "You sure?" He nodded, tracing it again. "Look here, someone tried to tape it from underneath, but the pressure will rip it open if someone lands too hard. It's a setup." Her throat tightened. "Camden." Theo's jaw clenched. "Maybe, but he doesn't work alone." They both looked up at the sound of the gym door creaking open. Two boys entered, older seniors. Theo recognized them instantly: Zach Drummond and Reed Castor, both of them Camden's hang-around enforcers from the football team. They carried a black duffel bag and a repair toolkit. The boys froze when they saw Nyla and Theo. Then Zach forced a grin. "Maintenance call," he said easily. "Coach wanted the mats checked before the demo." Theo's eyes dropped to the duffel. The zipper was half open, revealing pliers, duct tape, and a utility knife. Nyla didn't blink. "You usually do maintenance with blades." Reed shifted uneasily. "We're just helping out." Theo's hand moved to his pocket. Quietly, he hit record on his phone. Zach bent over the mat, pretending to adjust the edge. "Yeah, well, Coach doesn't want anyone getting hurt before the show. Wouldn't want, say, one bad fall making us look bad." Theo's stomach turned. "One bad fall," Reed echoed with a snicker. "That's all it takes. Especially when the crowd's watching." Nyla's eyes darkened. "You should leave," she said flatly. Zach stood smirking. "Relax, Brooks. It's just a safety check." Theo's voice cut through the air, calm but sharp. "Then I guess you won't mind if I show the safety officer what I just recorded." The smirk vanished. Zach's knuckles whitened on the toolkit handle. For a second, the air froze, no one breathing, no one moving. Then Reed nudged his friend toward the exit. "Let's go," Reed muttered. "We're not getting caught over this." They left quickly but not quietly. The slam of the gym door echoed long after they were gone. Theo exhaled. "Got it all," he said, checking the recording. The audio was clear, every word about the cut, the one bad fall, the laughter. Nyla looked at the slit again. "They would have let me land on that." Theo's voice was quiet but shaking. "Yeah. And they would have called it an accident." By mid-morning, the gym felt different. The same space that had nearly become a trap now buzzed with something else purpose. Whitaker's office lights were on, blinds drawn. In the corner of the staff lot, a marked patrol car idled, exhaust curling white in the cold air. Inside, Officer Denise Carter, Bayridge's campus precinct liaison, stood beside Whitaker's desk watching the phone screen Theo had handed her. The clip played cleanly. The two seniors' voices were unmistakable. "One bad fall," Carter repeated, jaw tightening. "That doesn't sound like a joke." Theo stood near the window, shoulders tight. "It wasn't." Whitaker exhaled, her composure cracking for the first time in days. "How deep does this go?" Carter slipped her phone into a case, her voice low. "Deep enough that we open a file. I'll file the report under suspected sabotage with intent to harm." Whitaker stared down at her desk where the district schedule and press materials for the demonstration lay spread out. "You realize what happens if this leaks to the board?" Carter nodded. "I also realize what happens if it doesn't." The weight of that truth filled the room like a fog. Finally, Whitaker whispered, "Do it." Carter tapped her phone, recording a note into the precinct system. Case file opened, Bayridge High. Incident, potential injury, tampering suspects Zach Drummond and Reed Castor. Theo looked up. "What about Camden?" Carter didn't answer immediately. "If he ordered it, we'll find proof. But right now we need to keep this quiet until the investigation's official." Whitaker's computer pinged then, a sharp ding that made everyone flinch. She clicked the inbox. A new email flashed on-screen, subject line in all caps, Department of Education notice. Immediate response required. The message opened automatically. "We have received a report of potential negligence in ensuring student safety during extracurricular demonstrations. Bayridge High Administration must provide a verified incident response and safety plan within 48 hours. Failure to comply will trigger a full investigation and disciplinary review." Whitaker's fingers froze on the mouse. "They're already watching," she murmured. Carter leaned over her shoulder. "You have 48 hours, Principal. Use them wisely." That evening the sun set early, turning the gym windows into sheets of dark glass. Students crowded around the bulletin board outside the main hall, phones raised to snap the freshly pinned roster. Names were listed under district exhibition performances. The chatter was low but restless. When Nyla and Theo arrived, the murmurs turned into silence. Near the bottom of the list, one line stood out in bold: demonstration, breath power discipline. Performed by Nyla Brooks. Theo read it twice, then looked at her. "You're performing? After what they just tried?" Nyla's eyes didn't waver. "That's exactly why I'm performing." He started to argue, but she cut him off softly. "They wanted fear. I'll give them precision." Her reflection glimmered faintly in the glass, strong, unshaken. Theo exhaled slowly, almost a smile in disbelief. "You're going to make them watch. I'm going to make them remember," she said. Behind them, the janitor switched off the hallway lights one by one. Each click echoed like a countdown. And when the final light went out, only the bold black letters remained visible under the emergency exit glow. Nyla Brooks, demonstration. The name that was supposed to be erased was now printed for everyone to see. And for the first time since the cafeteria, Nyla didn't look like a survivor. She looked like a storm. The name Nyla Brooks, demonstration, burned under the gym's fluorescent light long after everyone else had left the hallway. By the next evening, it wasn't just a line on a roster. It was a headline whispered between classrooms, a dare passed through DMs, a promise hanging over Bayridge High. And when the district showcase finally began, the rumor had already outgrown the building. The gym had been transformed into a temporary arena. Banners of different schools hung from the rafters. The bleachers were full parents, students, teachers, district officials, even a few local journalists with cameras perched on their laps. The lights were brutal, white-hot, unblinking. Every corner of the stage gleamed with that polished, expectant shine only performance nights have. The breath before the first act felt like standing on the edge of something sacred and dangerous. Coach Herrera paced near the scoreboard, headset mic dangling from his neck. Principal Whitaker stood with the district coordinator near the judge's table, face calm but hands tight. The tension wasn't just about a demonstration, it was about what it represented. Because everyone in that gym knew the story by now: the cafeteria, the hallway, the gym blackout, the sabotage. Some thought Nyla Brooks was a menace. Others thought she was a miracle. Either way, they all came to see her move. The showcase unfolded in sequence: team forms, short matches, self-defense drills. The crowd clapped politely, the air filled with the thump of feet and the bark of commands. Then came the final act. Next, the announcer said, voice echoing through the mic, Bayridge High's representative Nyla Brooks performing the internal discipline Kata breath and root flow. The crowd murmured. Phones lifted. Nyla stepped into the light. She wore a plain white gino patches, no belt showing rank. Her hair was tied in a simple knot, her expression serene. No makeup, no choreography, no opponent. Just her. The stage lights caught on her skin as she took her place at the center. Theo watched from the front row, heart hammering. He could see her inhale once long and quiet before bowing toward the judge's table. Then silence. The first motion was a breath. It wasn't dramatic, just a subtle draw of air, but it shifted the entire space. Shoulders softened across the audience. The gym's hum quieted. She lowered her stance, knees bent, soles flat against the mat. Every movement from then on seemed to rise and fall with invisible tides. Her arms swept outward, spiraling through the air in arcs so precise they drew invisible geometry, the mathematics of control. When she stepped, the floor didn't creak. It responded. Each motion seemed to connect to something deeper, like her breath was pulling gravity itself into rhythm. She turned, pivoted, shifted weight, coiling and uncoiling her center, every movement clean, proportioned, impossible to misread. It wasn't fighting. It was fluency in something older than violence. By the halfway mark, the bleachers had gone utterly still. Even the restless kids filming stopped tapping their screens. The final motion came like a heartbeat. Nyla inhaled, then pressed both palms forward, slow, deliberate. The motion ended with her fingertips tracing the air, as if smoothing the ripples left by everything that came before. Then stillness. She exhaled. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was reverence. Someone finally clapped, then another, and suddenly the gym roared to life with applause that felt like thunder cracking through fog. But the sound was broken by a sharper voice, female, shrill, laced with fury. This is glorifying fighting. Every head turned. Camden's mother, sitting in the second row of the parent section, stood, with her hands gripping the railing. Her pearl earrings flashed under the lights as she pointed toward the stage. This is what you call education, she demanded. Teaching children to hit, to humiliate others. A ripple of murmurs ran through the crowd. Whitaker rose halfway from her seat, but Coach Herrera beat her to it. He stepped forward, calm and grounded, his voice carrying effortlessly through the mic. Ma, he said, what you just saw wasn't a fight. It's called Jingqi. It's an internal discipline we teach for balance, control, and safety. She scoffed. Safety. She could maybe defended herself, yes. Herrera interrupted gently. That's the point. This isn't provocation. It's prevention. His tone was even but edged with authority, the kind that made even angry parents pause. He gestured toward Nyla, still standing silently in the center. Every move she performed is part of the official physical education curriculum. Breath control, energy alignment, postural recovery, no strikes, no aggression, only self-governance. The crowd murmured again, but this time the tone had shifted. One father near the aisle nodded. Another parent began clapping again, slower this time, thoughtful. Then the applause spread. It wasn't thunderous this time, it was steady, a rising sound of agreement. Camden's mother sat down, face tight, jaw clenched. The district official whispered something to Whitaker, who allowed herself a small, exhausted smile. On the stage, Nyla bowed once more. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the mic caught it perfectly. Strength is not the act of hitting, it's the art of not needing to. The applause doubled. Backstage, the air smelled of sweat and polish. Students from other schools chatted in nervous excitement, snapping photos and packing up gear. Nyla stood by the back door, towel around her shoulders, letting the noise from the gym wash over her. "You always had the breath right," a voice said behind her. She turned. The man was older, tall, with white hair pulled into a short tail, wearing a black teaching jacket embroidered with faint golden kanji. His face was lined but calm, his gaze sharp. "Master Ellison," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "Didn't think I'd see you again, Nyla." She bowed instinctively. "I didn't think you'd want to." He chuckled. "The student doesn't choose when the teacher stops caring." From his pocket he produced a small brass key worn smooth by time. "I've been holding this since your father's memorial," he said. "It opens the old dojo on 12th and Ridge. I kept it closed because I thought discipline had lost its place in this world." He pressed it into her hand. "Maybe it hasn't." The metal was cold but pulsed with history. She looked at him, unsure what to say. "Keep teaching what you showed them out there," he said quietly. "Let them see what power really looks like." She nodded, the key glinting faintly in her palm. A few minutes later, as the crowd began to empty, Nyla walked toward the storage hallway behind the stage. The echo of footsteps faded behind her. The utility lights flickered dimly overhead. She reached for her bag, but something caught her eye, the utility closet door slightly ajar. She frowned. The latch hung bent as if forced. Inside, the safety gear was in disarray: ropes, mats, duct tape, and near the back corner the safety pins that secured the support rigging for tomorrow's stage demonstration were missing. Her pulse slowed, steady, instinctive. "Not again," she whispered. The brass key still sat warm in her hand, its teeth catching the light. For the first time since she'd entered Bayridge, she felt the old rhythm of her training return, not just as defense but as foresight. She stepped back, closed the door gently, and exhaled once. Someone had tried again, and this time the stage wasn't going to lie for them. The air outside the gym had changed. It wasn't celebration anymore. It was waiting. The last of the applause still echoed faintly through the glass doors as Nyla Brooks stepped out into the staff parking lot. The night had gone cold fast. Her breath hung in front of her face like a warning. Behind her, the building lights dimmed one by one. The event was over, the crowd dispersing. Yet something in her gut whispered that not everything had left with them. She clutched the brass key Master Ellison had given her, feeling the edges press into her palm. And then, footsteps. Low, heavy, deliberate. 3 sets. From the corner of the lot, Camden Price emerged first. He wasn't wearing his varsity jacket anymore. Just a dark hoodie, sleeves pushed up, expression sharp as glass. Beside him, Sloane Rivers stepped out of the shadows, phone in one hand, eyes gleaming like someone who'd already rehearsed her alibi. And between them, someone Nyla didn't recognize. A man in his late 20s, thick-neck tattoos creeping up his jawline. His hands were scarred, his stance too balanced for a casual threat. Nyla's breath steadied. "You brought help," she said. Camden's jaw twitched. "You brought shame." Sloane smirked. "We're just here to talk. People like you," Nyla said quietly, "don't talk. You perform." The tattooed man cracked his knuckles. "Lady, I just do what I'm paid for." The words hung in the cold air like a match waiting for friction. Nyla took a slow step backward, assessing angles, the lampposts, the open path to the gate, the reflection of red brake lights from passing cars beyond the fence. Her brain mapped everything without panic. "You can hire muscle," she said softly, "but not wisdom." Sloane scoffed. "Let's see if that still sounds clever when you're flat on your back." Camden took a step forward. "You think you get to embarrass me, ruin my name, and walk away?" Nyla tilted her head. "You already walked into the ruin yourself." He lunged. The man moved first, fast, practiced, but Nyla was faster in stillness. She sidestepped just enough for his momentum to betray him. His arm swung where she'd been. She caught his wrist, redirected the force downward. Her other hand gripped the edge of his hoodie, pulling not to hurt but to reveal his imbalance. His knee hit pavement. Sloane cursed, fumbling with her phone. "Get her," Camden charged, next, rage over form, all brute energy. Nyla pivoted again, a simple half-circle turn that left him colliding straight into the man's recovering frame. Their shoulders slammed. The sound cracked through the night. "Move!" Camden shouted, but his hired enforcer was already off rhythm, growling in frustration. Nyla stepped back, hands still low, posture calm, every motion smaller than it should have been, surgical in its economy. Theo's voice suddenly echoed from the gate. "Stop." He was running across the lot now, phone light cutting through the dark. Behind him, 2 teachers and a few students had followed, drawn by the noise. "Don't," he shouted again. "The cops are on their way." For a split second that broke the rhythm, Camden hesitated. The tattooed man turned toward the commotion. That was all Nyla needed. She shifted, caught the man's forearm mid-turn, and redirected him with a short, controlled twist, non-violent but final. He stumbled forward, momentum carrying him to his knees. Camden, enraged, swung again, wild. She didn't counter. She ducked. His punch connected not with her but with Sloane's raised hand as she tried to record. The phone flew clattering across the asphalt, its screen cracking on impact. Sloane screamed, clutching her wrist. Sirens wailed before anyone could speak again. Red and blue strobes sliced through the parking lot as Officer Denise Carter's patrol car screeched to a stop. The hum of authority replaced chaos instantly. "Hands where I can see them," she barked, stepping out, flashlight slicing through the scene. Nyla raised her hands slowly. Camden and his companion froze. Sloane backed away, voice trembling. "She attacked us, save it." Carter snapped. She looked around, eyes sharp as glass. "Someone want to tell me why I just got 3 emergency calls from witnesses reporting a brawl in a staff lot?" Theo moved forward. "She didn't start it." Carter glanced at him. "You're the kid who brought me the sabotage clip, right?" He nodded. Her gaze flicked to Sloane, who was clutching her broken phone. "That yours?" Sloane hesitated. "Yes. But she..." "Hand it over." "I can't, it's private." "Not anymore," Carter said, voice like steel. She slipped on latex gloves and took the device from her, clicking on the cracked screen. The glare lit up Sloane's face like a confession booth. Messages scrolled in plain sight. Group chat, Bayridge crew. Sloane sliced the pad. "Make it look like a fall." "Zach, we got it. No one'll know." "Camden, make sure Brooks is up first." The silence that followed was louder than any siren. Carter's voice dropped to a low register, every syllable clean and surgical. "So this is how you 3 plan to make someone fall? That sound right?" Camden's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. "That's not," Theo cut in quietly. "That's exactly what it is." Sloane turned pale. "Those were jokes. Inside jokes." Carter arched a brow. "You slice safety pads as a joke." Sloane looked at Camden, desperate. "Say something." Camden said nothing. His lawyer's voice echoed faintly from a Bluetooth earpiece buzzing in his pocket. He pressed it, muttering, "They can't hold me for this. I didn't touch anything." Carter's patience evaporated. "You just brought an adult into a student confrontation. That's assault coordination. You want me to add witness intimidation to the list." The tattooed man swore under his breath. "I was told it was just a talk." "By who?" He didn't answer. Carter turned back to Nyla. "You hurt anyone?" Nyla shook her head. "No. They hurt themselves." That earned a few nervous laughs from the onlookers, though no one was quite sure if it was safe to laugh yet. Carter holstered her flashlight and straightened. "All right, here's how this works. Phones now. All of them." Reluctantly, everyone obeyed. Screens and evidence bags piled into her cruiser's trunk like relics of vanity finally caught in the light. The tattooed man was cuffed first. Sloane was next, her voice breaking into fragments of denial. Camden stood motionless, fists shaking until his phone buzzed again. He pressed the earpiece. "Yes, I'm here," he said, his voice trembling with barely controlled rage. "They're trying to frame me. She's ruining the price name." Officer Carter's head turned. "Son," she said evenly, "you already tried to ruin it yourself." Her words hit harder than any strike. Theo stood beside Nyla, watching as the reality he'd known flipped like a coin midair. All the power, all the lies, all the noise, it collapsed under one simple truth that didn't need editing. The sirens still painted the lot in red and blue, reflecting across puddles and broken glass. Nyla stood silent, the brass key still clenched in her fist, the same stillness she'd held since the cafeteria. Carter turned to her at last. "You're coming with me, Brooks." Theo stepped forward instinctively. "She didn't do anything." Carter nodded. "I know, but she's giving her statement." Then softer. "And the record needs to hear it from the one person who never needed to lie." By the time the second squad car arrived, the crowd had gathered students, teachers, a few lingering parents. Phones were out again, of course, but this time they weren't spinning stories. They were recording a truth no one could twist. Sloan wept. Camden stared at the pavement like it might swallow him. And in the center of it all, Nyla didn't gloat or flinch. She simply breathed. As the patrol lights spun against the gym walls, the brass key in her hand caught one red flash and one blue, two colors merging into violet. Theo saw it, and for a moment he realized what had changed. The truth wasn't fighting for her anymore. It was fighting with her. The sirens faded, but the echo of them lingered long after the crowd dispersed. By sunrise, the story had already fractured into versions, one whispered through locker halls, one trending on social feeds, and one waiting to be dissected by the district office. By Monday morning, Bayridge High wasn't a school anymore. It was a courtroom wearing a dress shirt. The district disciplinary board convened inside the auditorium, a long polished table set on the stage, microphones in neat rows, cameras posted along the aisles. Parents filled the seats. Teachers sat behind nameplates. Students lined the back wall, pretending not to record. The news vans outside made sure this was no longer an internal affair. The banner overhead read Special Hearing, Incident Review, Student Safety Committee. Principal Whitaker stood at the podium, her expression carved from exhaustion and resolve. To her left, Officer Denise Carter reviewed a folder stacked thick with evidence logs. To her right sat District Counsel Patel, hands clasped tight, eyes scanning the room for calm that wasn't there. And in the first row, Camden Price, pale jaw locked. Next to him sat Sloan Rivers. Her phone confiscated, her expression stuck between performance and collapse. Theo sat 2 rows back, notebook in hand, the brass key from Nyla's pocket now hanging from his backpack zipper. Nyla herself waited quietly by the side door, her posture straight, her hands folded in her lap. Whitaker adjusted the mic. "We're here to review findings regarding the events of the last 2 weeks, the gym altercation, the sabotage attempt, and the staff lot incident. We'll hear from Officer Carter regarding verified evidence." Carter stood. Her voice was crisp, unshakable. "3 primary sources form the verified chain of events," she said. "First, the original footage from the gym loft camera, which clearly shows Miss Brooks acting in measured self-defense against an unprovoked assault. Second, a text message thread recovered from Miss Rivers' device in which she and 2 associates coordinated an act of tampering with a competition pad and discussed staging an accident to frame Miss Brooks. Third, a video clip provided by Mr. Grant showing those same individuals in the gym early that morning, confirming intent to sabotage." Her tone didn't rise. She didn't need it to. Each sentence landed like a clean strike. "Additionally," Carter continued, "audio from the staff lot confrontation captures Mr. Price hiring a third party, a non-student, to intimidate Miss Brooks. All parties are on record admitting presence." The murmurs rippled like waves through the auditorium. Camden's father shifted in his seat, face red, whispering furiously into his son's ear. Sloan stared at the floor, unmoving. Whitaker nodded toward her. "Miss Rivers, you may respond." Sloan's voice trembled at first. "The videos you've seen," she began, then stopped. Her throat clicked. Officer Carter leaned slightly forward. "Yes, they were edited," Sloan said finally. "Not the gym one, the ones we made. I cut things together to make them look." She struggled for words more dramatic. "So people would care. It was supposed to be watchable." The word hung there, small and ugly. "Watchable," Carter repeated flatly. "You endangered someone's life for views." Sloan's lip quivered. "It wasn't supposed to go that far." From the back of the room, a teacher muttered under their breath, "They never are." Camden slammed his hand on the table. "You can't just—" "Sit down, Mr. Price," Whitaker said sharply. "You'll speak when recognized." He stayed standing, breathing hard, eyes darting toward the cameras. "You're all acting like I'm some kind of criminal. This is about a misunderstanding. My family's done more for this school than anyone. Officer Carter didn't flinch. Your family name doesn't exempt you from accountability. He laughed bitterly. You think you can destroy the Price name over some gossip and a few texts? Carter's voice dropped calm as a blade. You already tried. Gasps broke through the rows. Whitaker gavelled the room twice for order. That's enough. We're not here to relitigate your ego, Mr. Price. We're here to determine consequences. Camden sank back into his chair, jaw clenched. District Counsel Patel adjusted his glasses and began reading from a printed statement. Effective immediately based on verified evidence and cross-confirmation from District IT and local law enforcement. The following actions are recommended and adopted unanimously by the board. Camden Price and Sloan Rivers are indefinitely suspended pending police investigation for criminal tampering, cyber manipulation, and endangerment. The Bayridge Athletic Council is placed under review. All extracurricular programs will undergo safety compliance audits. He paused, letting the silence digest it. Additionally, he continued, Bayridge High will launch an anonymous reporting hotline for harassment and implement an optional self-defense curriculum under certified supervision. The initiative will be named Project Stand. The crowd murmured, some approving, some skeptical. Whitaker added, discipline isn't punishment. It's geometry. The phrase hung in the air, strange and profound. Geometry, one parent whispered. Whitaker nodded. You change the angle, you change the outcome. That's all discipline really is, teaching people to shift, not strike. The crowd quieted. For a heartbeat, even Camden stopped breathing. Sloan broke the silence first. I didn't mean to hurt her, she said softly, tears streaking her mascara. I didn't want to disappear. Whitaker looked at her, not cruelly. Fame built on someone else's pain always collapses under its own weight. Theo closed his notebook, jaw tight. He'd been taking notes like it mattered, but now he realized it wasn't for the record, it was for himself. To remember that justice, when it worked, could sound like truth spoken plainly in public. Camden's lawyer rose, whispering quickly into his ear, trying to calm him. But the boy's composure finally cracked. This isn't over, Camden muttered. I'll appeal. You'll see. Carter folded her arms. You've been appealing to your privilege for years. Try appealing to your conscience instead. The cameras caught the line. It would play on every local news broadcast that night. As the board adjourned, applause broke out, not from everyone but from enough people to matter. Parents clapped cautiously. Students in the back row cheered outright. But others sat stone-faced, some Price family supporters, some who thought Nyla's calm made her dangerous. Theo watched it all, feeling both relief and exhaustion twist together. Nyla stood near the exit, waiting for the noise to pass before stepping outside. The hallway was quiet now, the kind of quiet that comes only after a storm has finally run out of rain. She paused by the bulletin board, where the Project Stand announcement had already been pinned. Anonymous hotline launching next week. Empowerment through breath, balance, and boundaries. Underneath, someone had written in pen, not all heroes fight loud. She didn't smile, but something in her posture softened, like a wire finally uncoiling. Through the glass doors, Theo caught up to her. They listened, he said. For once, she replied. Does it feel like it's over? She thought for a moment. It feels like the world just turned a degree. That's enough. They walked out into the fading afternoon light. Inside, the cameras were still being packed away, but one lens, forgotten, still recording, caught the last seconds before the lights went out. Camden sitting alone, head in his hands. Sloan staring at the table where her phone used to be. Outside, the wind shifted, carrying away the last fragments of applause. And for the first time, Bayridge High sounded like a place that might remember how to breathe again. The afternoon after the hearing felt almost unreal. Bayridge High looked the same from the outside, same cracked walkway, same banners drooping under the sun, but the air inside had changed. It wasn't fear anymore. It was readiness. 2 weeks had passed since the disciplinary board's decision, and for once the school felt like it was breathing again. The gym smelled of floor polish and anticipation. The bleachers were pushed back, the mats rolled out, and a new banner stretched across the far wall. Project Stand. Strength, not silence. Coach Herrera adjusted the last clip on a portable mic and called across the room. Brooks, you ready? Nyla looked up from her notes. Always. She wore a black training shirt with the program logo stitched near the collar. Her hair was tied up neatly, her expression calm but alive, the kind of focus that drew people's attention without needing to ask for it. Herrera clapped his hands once. "All right, everyone. Let us begin. Stand firm." 101. A group of 40 students stood in a loose semicircle. Freshmen, sophomores, a few juniors, nervous but curious. Some had come out of genuine interest. Others because it was now part of PE credit. Herrera began the session like a coach starting a pregame talk. "This isn't about fighting. It's about reclaiming space, your body, your voice, your right to exist without fear." Then he gestured to Nyla. "And this," he said, "is the person who showed us what that looks like." The students clapped, hesitant at first, then louder when Nyla bowed lightly and smiled. She stepped onto the center mat. "All right," she said, her voice steady. "First lesson, wrist escape." She motioned for Theo, who was helping set up, to step forward. He offered his wrist. She gripped it gently. "When someone grabs you, your instinct is to pull away," she said. "That gives them strength. What you do instead," she rotated her wrist, slipping through the gap between his thumb and fingers, "is redirect." A few gasps rippled through the group. "You don't fight their hand," she continued. "You find the opening. Violence feeds on reaction. Control feeds on awareness." Herrera added, "We call this the geometry of defense angles, not anger." The kids tried it themselves. The room filled with awkward laughter and shuffling as wrists turned hands, slipped, and balance found its rhythm. Nyla walked between rows, adjusting postures, encouraging quiet confidence instead of bravado. "Again," she said gently, "breathe before you move. You can't anchor a storm with panic." An hour later, the gym buzzed with something rare, energy without tension. They'd gone from basic balance drills to voice training. "Boundary voice," Nyla explained, projecting her tone. "Not screaming, not pleading. Just power you can hear from 10 feet away." She pointed at a student. "Try it." The girl hesitated, then said softly, "Stop." "Louder." Nyla encouraged. "Stop. Louder. Stop." The sound echoed off the bleachers. Applause followed. Theo grinned from the sidelines. Not bad for day one. By the end of the session, even Herrera looked surprised at how the group carried themselves, shoulders higher, laughter freer, quiet confidence spreading like a low flame. He turned to Nyla. "You realize this might actually work, right?" She smiled faintly. "That's the plan." Outside, the autumn sun cut long shadows across the field where the next class was gathering for outdoor drills. And that was when something unexpected happened. Two boys, Zach Drummond and Reed Castor, walked into the gym. Conversation faltered instantly. Heads turned. The same students who'd once laughed at their jokes now went silent. Zach's face was pale. Reed carried a folded note in his hands. Herrera stepped forward warily. "You two cleared to be here?" Zach nodded. "We're here to say something." Nyla stood still, waiting. Reed unfolded the note with shaking fingers. "We were asked by the board to record a public apology." He began, voice cracking, "but we wanted to say it here in person." The silence deepened. Zach swallowed hard. "Last year we spread rumors about Tori Green, said things we thought were jokes. We didn't care how it wrecked her life. And we did the same with Nyla. We thought cruelty was currency." He looked straight at Nyla. "We were wrong," Reed added, voice trembling. "We're sorry for everything. We don't deserve forgiveness, but we wanted to try to earn it." At the back of the room, Tori herself stood. Her eyes were red but dry. She walked forward slowly, the sound of her sneakers loud in the hush. Everyone watched as she stopped in front of them. "You can't erase what you did," she said softly. "But saying this out loud, it's a start." The apology was filmed by one of the student reporters, part of the school's accountability documentation project. Within hours, it would circulate across Bayridge social media, tagged under number "Stand Not Shame." For once, the comments weren't cruel. They were hopeful. Later that afternoon, Principal Whitaker joined Nyla and Herrera on the field as students packed up. "I've been thinking about what you said," Whitaker began. "About changing angles, not just punishments." Herrera smiled. "It's catching on." Whitaker exhaled, folding her arms. "You were right. This school was tilted. I let donor politics decide what programs we offered. The Price family's checks kept our equipment shiny, but they also kept us quiet." Nyla tilted her head. And now, Whitaker looked toward the small building beyond the fence, the abandoned community dojo that had stood empty for years. Now, she said, we rebuild differently. She turned back to them. I spoke to the board this morning. They're approving funds to restore the old dojo as the official training hub for Project Stand. Free classes open to the community. You'll both oversee it. Herrera blinked, caught off guard. You mean, officially? Whitaker nodded. Officially. We'll call it Bayridge Balance Center. For the first time in months, her smile didn't look tired. If we can't stop the world from being violent, we can at least teach it to breathe. Evening settled softly over the field. Students drifted home, laughing, their sneakers crunching through fallen leaves. Theo lingered near the bleachers, packing up training bands and coiling mats. He looked at Nyla. You realize you just rewired the culture of a school, right? She laughed quietly, one posture at a time. Then her phone buzzed. A new email notification blinked across the cracked screen. Subject line, invitation, National Coalition Against Youth Violence. She tapped it open. Dear Miss Brooks, your leadership through Project Stand has gained national attention. We'd be honored to have you as a youth representative at our upcoming conference in Washington, D.C. Please confirm availability. Nyla stared at the words for a long moment, her reflection shimmering faintly in the glass. Herrera noticed. What is it? She looked up, a mix of awe and weight crossing her face. They want me to speak, she said softly. He smiled. Then it looks like class is just getting started. The wind carried across the empty field, brushing through the banner that still read, Strength Not Silence. For the first time, Nyla allowed herself to feel it relief, not as an ending but as a breath before something bigger. She slipped the brass key from her pocket, the edges cool against her skin. Tomorrow she'd unlock that dojo. Tonight she'd write her first syllabus. The next morning came with sunlight that felt older than the town itself. Bayridge was quiet at dawn, just the low hum of traffic, the distant roll of waves, and the slow, patient breath of a community remembering peace. Nyla Brooks stood outside the old Ellison dojo, the brass key resting in her palm. It was heavier than it looked, simple, worn smooth from decades of use. The carved sign above the door still bore the faint calligraphy, Ellison School of Breath and Motion. Half the paint had peeled away, but somehow it made the place feel alive again. She slipped the key into the lock and turned. The click echoed through the corridor like a small thunderclap. Inside, the air was laced with pine and dust, the scent of sweat and memory. Wooden floors scarred with the ghosts of training sessions past reflected narrow beams of morning light. Every creak sounded like someone bowing in welcome. Master Ellison was already there, sweeping slowly, his long sleeves brushing the air in rhythmic arcs. He looked up with a smile that carried both pride and apology. You came early. I couldn't sleep, Nyla said. I kept hearing the crowd from yesterday. It didn't feel finished. Ellison leaned the broom against the wall. Good. Nothing worth doing ever feels finished. He gestured toward the mats rolled up in the corner. You ready to wake the floor? She nodded, dropped her bag, and helped him unroll them. The smell of old canvas filled the room. When the last mat settled, Ellison crossed his arms and studied her stance. You know, he said, most people think strength is about force. But real strength, he pointed at her chest, starts where breath meets intent. He walked to the wall where a cracked mirror hung its silver faded. When you train, remember this, you're not here to impress. You're here to intercept harm. Nyla nodded, taking in every word. He smiled faintly. That's why I'm reopening this dojo, not as a monument but as a bridge. For every student who's been told their silence is safety. He handed her a folded paper. You'll teach the scholarship group, Saturdays. Kids who can't afford lessons but need them most. She unfolded the note. The list of names was small but real, 4 students ages 8 to 12. Me, she asked. You want me to teach them? I want you to guide them, Ellison said. Teaching comes later. She exhaled slowly. I'm not sure I'm ready, he chuckled. No one ever is. That's why we train. The morning session began an hour later. 4 kids stood in a line, barefoot, awkward, curious. 2 girls, 2 boys. Their uniforms mismatched, but their eyes were steady. Nyla bowed. Welcome to your first class. They bowed back, uneven but earnest. We're not here to fight, she said. We're here to find balance. She wrote 3 words on the whiteboard at the front of the room. Breathe. root, respond. Everything we do comes from these three, she said. Breathe before you move, root before you fall, respond, don't react. The first lesson was simple breathing. She led them through inhale and exhale, slow and deliberate. Again, she said softly. Feel the floor. It doesn't hold you. You meet it halfway. They practiced stepping left, right, back, pivot. One boy tripped and laughed. She smiled with him, not at him. Every fall teaches you something, she said. If you stand too fast, you miss the lesson. Ellison watched quietly from the corner, arms folded. When one of the girls hesitated to shout her boundary phrase, he spoke up. Courage isn't loud, he said gently. It's steady. By the end of class, the kids had learned to escape a wrist hold, balance their stance, and say no like they meant it. Nyla gathered them near the center mat for closing words. Before we end, she said, we take an oath. You don't have to memorize it yet, just listen. She took a breath and recited the words she'd written that morning in a notebook still stained with pool chlorine. I move not to wound but to warn. I stand not to strike but to shield. My hands remember restraint. My heart remembers calm. I am a shield, never a sword. For a moment none of the kids spoke. Then one of them, an 11-year-old named Marcus, raised his hand. Can we say it with you next time? He asked. Nyla smiled. We'll say it together. Over the next few weeks, the dojo came alive again. Pine floors echoed with footsteps. Windows opened to the sound of kids counting breaths in unison. Old posters were replaced with new ones reading, Stand, don't sink. The motto stuck. It became their call and response. Stand, Nyla would shout. Don't sink, the kids would yell back, voices bouncing off the walls with a kind of defiant joy. Even locals who passed by the building slowed down to listen. Some peeked in, some signed up. Ellison started calling the classes the quiet revolutions. Every time someone learns not to flinch, he said, the world loses a little bit of cruelty. Nyla began keeping a journal of lessons learned, not just for the students, but for herself. Her handwriting filled the margins with phrases like, stillness isn't surrender, teaching is another form of defense, legacy doesn't arrive, you unlock it. Theo stopped by one Saturday, leaning against the doorway as the class ended. You've built something, he said, watching Marcus and the others laughing as they stacked mats. I just turned the key, Nyla said. Ellison looked at her, then at Theo. And that's how legacies start. That afternoon, Principal Whitaker visited the dojo for the first time since funding approval. She stood by the entrance, taking in the sight of kids practicing slow turns under beams of sun slicing through the windows. This place feels honest, she said quietly. It's supposed to, Ellison replied. She turned to Nyla. You've made Bayridge proud, you know. Nyla brushed a strand of hair from her face. I didn't do it alone. Whitaker smiled. The good ones never do. As the last of the students left, Nyla swept the floor, repeating the rhythm Ellison had shown her that first morning: sweep, turn, breathe. Her phone buzzed on the bench. A new email. She wiped her hands and picked it up. Subject, City of Cleveland. Young Citizen of Courage Award. Her eyes widened as she read, Dear Miss Brooks, the City of Cleveland recognizes your extraordinary contributions to youth safety and empowerment through Project Stand and the Ellison Dojo Initiative. We are honored to invite you to City Hall to receive the Young Citizen of Courage Award this Friday evening. A press representative will contact you for media coordination. She set the phone down slowly. Ellison noticed the shift in her expression. News, she nodded. They want me to accept an award. He raised an eyebrow. You going? She hesitated. I don't know. It feels strange being recognized for just doing what should have been done a long time ago. Ellison chuckled softly. Legacy doesn't arrive, Nyla. You unlock it. And when you do, it tends to echo. Outside, the afternoon light turned gold, spilling across the pine floorboards. The sound of children laughing outside drifted through the open door. Nyla looked at the brass key still hanging from her necklace and smiled. Then maybe it's time to let it echo. The invitation arrived exactly 3 days after the City Hall ceremony. At first, Nyla thought it was a mistake. a typo in an email subject line that read, Inter-District Youth Anti-Violence Forum, keynote speaker Nyla Brooks. She reread it twice, still not believing that her name was printed under a city seal. Now, on a bright Friday morning, she stood backstage at Cleveland Civic Hall, palms open, pulse steadying with every breath. Beyond the curtain, 500 students, teachers, officers, and journalists packed into folding chairs under the banner that stretched across the stage. Silence ends here. Camera lenses glinted like patient eyes. Coach Herrera adjusted the mic on the podium. "You'll do fine," she murmured. Officer Denise Carter gave a reassuring nod. "Just tell them the truth. It's what started this." Nyla smiled faintly. "Truth's heavier when it's yours." Master Ellison, leaning against the wall, replied softly, "Then let them help you carry it." The MC's voice echoed through the hall. "Please welcome Nyla Brooks, student founder of Project Stand." Applause rippled through the air, not thunderous but steady, curious. Nyla stepped forward. The light hit her face, hot, unforgiving but cleansing. She didn't start with a story. She started with a breath. "You've probably already seen the videos," she said simply. "You know the names. You know the noise." A murmur swept the room. Everyone knew what she meant. Bayridge, the viral clips, the chaos. "But what you don't know," she continued, voice calm, "is that silence was the first thing I ever learned. I thought if I kept quiet long enough, the world would stop trying to prove it could hurt me." She looked at the rows of faces, some leaning forward, others frozen still. "It doesn't," she said. "Silence doesn't save you. It just trains you to disappear better." Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice grew stronger. "I was humiliated in a cafeteria once," she said. Hundreds of eyes. Cameras. Laughter that didn't stop. And I did nothing, or at least it looked like I did nothing. But what I really did was decide if they're going to record something, let them record the moment silence runs out. A soft hush fell over the audience. Nyla glanced at the microphone, then back at them. "So if you've ever been hurt, or watched someone get hurt, and you said nothing because you thought it was safer, that doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But if you stay silent now, that's a choice. And every choice draws its own kind of scar." The first hand rose in the second row. A boy, skinny, wearing a Letterman jacket too big for him, stood shakily. "My name's Isaiah," he said, voice cracking. "I was bullied by my best friend for 2 years. It wasn't punches, it was," he swallowed hard, "it was the jokes. The kind that make you hate your reflection. I never told anyone. Until now." His hands dropped shaking, but before he could sit, applause broke, soft at first, then growing. Nyla nodded at him gently. "That's how you start healing." Out loud, another hand rose, then another. A girl near the aisle whispered into the mic, passed to her, "Me too. I was a joke to people I ate lunch with every day." Someone else added, "My brother got suspended for fighting back. I didn't believe him when he said it wasn't his fault." Within minutes, the auditorium became a confession choir. Not rehearsed, not perfect, just raw. Every every trembling, "I'm sorry," and every choked, "I wish I'd spoken sooner," built a rhythm that rolled through the room like a rising tide. Students cried quietly, others held hands. A teacher in the back row wiped her eyes, and Nyla just stood there, letting the silence between each story stretch, not to punish it but to honor it. Because for once, silence belonged to them. When the final microphone passed back to the stage, Officer Carter stepped forward, her uniform gleaming under the lights. "What you just did," she said, "is what most adults can't. You told the truth." She gestured to the crowd. "But truth needs structure to survive. That's why we're launching a hotline across every school represented here, anonymous, direct, monitored. Because power only hides in shadows." Applause again, louder this time. Coach Herrera took the mic next. "And if you want to learn how to stand firm, literally, Project Stand and the Ellison Dojo are opening weekend workshops for all of you. Self-defense, breathing, control conflict, de-escalation, no grades, no fees, just courage." The words, "just courage," flashed on the projector behind her. Ellison followed quietly, his voice low and clear. "A school's strength isn't in how high its walls are. It's in how many of its students can breathe freely within them." What you've built here? It's not a movement. It's a mirror. The audience stood. The applause became thunder. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras zoomed in on Nyla's face, tear tracks cutting through the faint shimmer of stage light. She didn't try to smile. She just exhaled. One journalist near the aisle whispered, "That's not a speech. That's a reset button." Outside in the glass lobby, the local news ticker scrolled Bayridge Student Sparks statewide reform program. When the crowd dispersed, Nyla stood backstage clutching her notebook. Theo appeared beside her holding a bottled water. "You know what's wild," he said. "You said less than 500 words and half the room said everything they'd been holding for years." She smiled faintly. "One voice breaks the seal." He tilted his head. "And hundreds pour through." They laughed softly, tired but lighter than before. Officer Carter entered, phone in hand. "I don't think you're done yet, Brooks." Nyla frowned. "Why?" Carter handed her the phone. "You just got another email from the Department of State Exchange Program." Nyla's brows lifted. She opened it. Subject: Global Youth Justice Forum. Invitation to represent the United States. Her lips parted as she read, "We've followed your work through Project Stand and your advocacy for youth empowerment. We'd be honored if you joined our international delegation at the Global Forum on Social Justice and Violence Prevention next month in Geneva. Travel details to follow." Theo whistled softly. "Geneva. As in Switzerland, Geneva." Nyla blinked, disbelief catching in her throat. Coach Herrera appeared beside them, grinning. "Looks like your message isn't staying in Cleveland." Master Ellison only smiled. "Legacies have passports too." Nyla stared at the screen, the glow reflecting in her eyes like a new sunrise. Outside the hall, the sky was pinking into dusk. Students lingered on the steps, still talking, still listening to one another. For the first time, Bayridge didn't sound like rumor. It sounded like community. Nyla walked through the lobby doors, her reflection caught briefly in the glass shoulders, back eyes steady, the same calm that once silenced a cafeteria now radiating through a city. The camera could have faded there, but instead the frame followed her into the parking lot where she stopped, looked at the horizon, and whispered the words she'd lived by. "Stand. Don't sink." The hum of jet engines carried faintly from the airport a few miles away. The next chapter was already boarding. The courtyard of Bayridge High had never sounded like this before. Not the wild cheer of pep rallies. Not the empty echoes after detention. Now it breathed differently, quiet, expectant, alive. The sun slanted low behind the red brick buildings, painting everything in gold. Rows of folding chairs stretched across the courtyard, filled with students, parents, and teachers. A black cloth covered a new brass plaque fixed near the fountain. The air carried the faint sound of water and the weight of change. Principal Whitaker stepped to the microphone. His voice cracked once, then found its footing. 2 years ago, this courtyard was where laughter hurt. He began. Where silence meant surrender. Today it means something else. Listening. Learning. Standing. He paused. Bayridge High isn't perfect, but it's awake. Then, with a steady hand, he pulled the black cloth away. The brass plaque caught the sunset and threw it back into the crowd. "No one stands alone." For a long second, no one breathed. Then slowly applause rose, a swell of sound rolling across the courtyard like thunder softened by hope. Whitaker stepped aside and Nyla walked up to the mic. She stood still for a heartbeat, letting the noise fade. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the plaque beside her, the same girl who once stood under camera lenses and ridicule, now standing under the open sky. Her voice came low but sure. There was a day when this courtyard echoed with laughter that didn't sound human, the kind that feeds on fear. I remember it because I was at the center of it. She looked up, eyes scanning the crowd, faces she knew, faces she didn't. I thought silence would keep me safe. I thought if I kept my head down I'd disappear before the next wave hit. But silence never saved me. It just made me easier to aim at. The students listened. Some swallowed hard. Others dropped their phones to their laps. Nyla took a breath. "We can't choose our past," she said. "But we can choose how we get back up and who we lift with us." Her voice gathered weight, not from volume, but conviction. If someone here is still standing where I once was, tired, cornered, waiting for someone else to do something, don't wait. You already have permission to stand. The words seemed to ripple through the courtyard. Then one student in the front row stood, then another, then 10 more. Within seconds, the entire courtyard rose, not loud, not chaotic, just a sea of quiet people standing for one truth. Nyla stepped back. Her eyes glistened. That's what strength looks like. Coach Herrera moved forward, clipboard in hand, breaking the heavy silence with a small grin. "We've got one more thing," she said. "A promise." Volunteers rolled out a long white banner that stretched across the lawn, blank lines waiting for names. Across the top, bold letters read, "The Stand Firm Pledge. I will not be silent in the face of harm. I will not weaponize laughter. I will protect truth even when it shakes the room." Students lined up. Tori Green stepped first, her pen trembling slightly as she signed. Behind her came Theo. "This one's for everyone who thought nobody saw them," he murmured as his name dried in black ink. By the time Nyla reached the end of the line, hundreds of signatures already filled the banner. She signed last, writing 2 extra words under her name. "Keep breathing." Camera shutters clicked. Reporters whispered. Across the courtyard, a small booth caught the orange light. Its sign read, "Transparency Desk, Student Media Hotline." 2 students inside wore headsets ready to take anonymous reports. Behind them, a poster read, "Light belongs to everyone." Nyla smiled. It wasn't a monument, it was motion. When the ceremony ended, the crowd lingered. Parents took photos by the plaque. Younger kids traced the engraved letters with their fingertips as if memorizing them. Nyla stayed behind. The fountain gurgled softly beside her. The sky was turning the color of slow fire. Master Ellison approached Kane, tapping gently on the stone. "When you first came to the dojo," he said, "you bowed too deep." Nyla looked over her shoulder. "Too deep. You were apologizing for taking space," he said. "Now you bow just enough. That's balance." She smiled. "Balance feels heavier than it looks." He nodded. "It should. That's how you know it's real." They watched in silence as the last students left, their laughter soft, different now, laughter that healed instead of cut. "You ready for the flight?" Ellison asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," he smiled. "You don't take the light, Nyla. You leave it." She looked at the plaque one more time. "And you keep it burning." Dawn. Cleveland Hopkins Airport. The floor gleamed under the early light. Loudspeakers murmured boarding calls, and rolling suitcases created their own rhythm. Nyla stood by the gate, backpack slung over one shoulder, passport tucked into her hoodie pocket. Theo, Tori, Coach Herrera, and Master Ellison stood in a small half-circle around her. Theo grinned. "Geneva, don't forget us little people when you go international." Tori laughed through tears. "We'll keep the hotline going. You just go teach the world how to breathe." Nyla smiled softly. "You already know how." Coach Herrera hugged her tightly. "You changed more than a school, Nyla. You changed the tempo." Ellison stepped forward, placing a small envelope in her hand. "For the trip." She opened it. Inside was a folded photo of the dojo signed by the scholarship kids. Across the bottom, stand, "Don't sink." She looked up, eyes glassy. "Thank you." The boarding announcement echoed. She exhaled slowly. "Guess that's me." As she walked toward the gate, Theo lifted his phone. "Wait, one picture." She turned. He snapped the shot, her silhouette framed by sunrise spilling through the terminal glass. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe. To keep the message alive. Comment, stand, don't sink. If you're with us, and share this with one person who needs a hand today.